So what we want to accomplish by the end of today is to open up a statewide discussion on partnership and collaboration in public schools. We want to hear this particular case from ABC. We want to look at the research that links partnerships to student performance and discuss opportunities to work together. In the room today is NJEA, NJAFT, New Jersey Association of School Administrators, New Jersey School Boards Association, New Jersey Principals Association. We've got representatives from New Jersey State Senate, New Jersey State Assembly, New Jersey Department of Education, Rutgers University, both the School of Management and Labor Relations and the Graduate School of Education, Princeton University, Teacher Preparation Program, Middlesex Community College, and then from school districts, Branchburg, Kearney, Lawrence, Metuchen, Montgomery, North Brunswick, Perth Amboy, Trenton, and the ABC Unified School District. We also have Congressman Rush Holt, who's here, who'll say a couple words in a moment, but Congressman Holt, we have a 3 minutes of your time.
Well, good morning. I'm Rush Holt. I represent some of you in Congress, many of your students from Lawrence, Trenton, North Brunswick, well, I used to represent Montgomery and Branchburg. And in education, all of you who've been working in education know that every single person in America thinks that she or he is an expert on education because they went to school. So to have something that is based on evidence, we're constantly telling ourselves that we want students to be taught evidence-based thinking. And yet, the way we go about reforming schools, the way we go about running schools, is so often not based on evidence. And so having a session like this, I think, is really very important. When I went to Congress, well over a decade ago, I fought to get a seat on the Education and Labor Committee. I think education is the answer, or at least the first part of the answer to almost every question. I saw up close the writing of No Child Left Behind. I saw very quickly that it turned into a failure. Even though it was based on good intentions of accountability across society, so that schools would be accountable to teachers, to students, to parents, to taxpayers, and on the good intention that assessment was a necessary part of that. But we've seen tests turn into really punitive instruments, used not to figure out what a student knows and how we can best provide what a student needs, but rather to terrorize students and to threaten teachers and to shut down so-called failing schools. That's not what testing should be about. Furthermore, what passes for reform too often today, and I hear this a lot in Washington, is something that wealthy entrepreneurs want to dabble in. Charter schools are brought forward actually not as a way to think about innovative changes in curriculum or scheduling or school structure, but rather as a way to throw out collective bargaining and fire teachers. And that we really need cooperative reform, and there are plenty of examples where it works. I think we have to begin with the understanding that schools are not a disaster site. By and large, we're in pretty good shape, and we shouldn't forget that. The different, everybody, a lot of hand-wringing over the last week about the PISA exams. Well, the difference between being at the top of the list and being in the middle of the list is not so huge. It is reachable without scrapping everything and starting over. It's important to remember that that people tend to say they like their kids' school, they like their kids' teachers. So I think when we talk about reform, it's a good place to start there. And then we should look at the evidence, look at educational research. I've put a great deal of effort into in Washington into trying to establish policy that strengthens educational research and integrates it into educational policy, in the Department of Education and elsewhere. Secondly, we should look to the people who know the most, who have devoted their careers and their lives to teaching. Teachers. I would put a lot more stock in what teachers and teachers' organizations have to say about teaching than what Wall Street bankers and entrepreneurs have to say about schools. So, you know, and as I said, there are a number of examples that lead us to believe that this can work. I imagine some of the school districts here are tired of hearing about Union City. But I've been to Union City. There are some really important lessons we can draw from there, positive lessons. David Kirk's book this year, you know, the progressive education writer, lays out some of this. It started with the teachers, and it's successful in large part because of the buy-in by the teachers. The reform that took place well over a decade ago now. And so I think I'm sorry they're not here, but there are some other good districts here and people who know the literature, know the studies, and I think a lot can come out of this.
So I want to start with the research. I'm going to run through this very quickly because I want to get to the story of ABC. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we have undertaken a study of institutional partnerships, institutional collaboration between teachers' unions and administrators that have been sustained for 10 years or more. It's not hard to start these, it's hard to sustain them. We looked at, for examples that were urban and rural. We looked for NEA and AFT. We looked north and south. We looked for examples from east and west coast, from wealthy and poor districts, to try to see was there a common pattern in all of these partnerships that was consistent. And what we found was that all of these partnerships that had been sustained over time had 4 common themes. One was they all had experienced a strong motivation to collaborate, a crisis, if you will. The second is they focused on strategic priorities. They focused on teaching quality and student performance. They all had developed infrastructure, concrete organizational infrastructure to support the collaboration, and they all had a set of factors that allowed them to be sustained. I want to talk very briefly about each of those 4 themes. The first, the motivation, the crisis or pivotal event. Every one of these districts had either been in a strike or taken a strike vote. And so they were actually in crisis between the union and administration, and they decided that this was getting them nowhere in terms of teaching, and getting them nowhere in terms of student learning, and so they recognized that while there were clearly areas of conflict, they had a lot more in common, particularly around the quality of what was happening in the school district, and they needed to align around that and overcome those pivotal events. And they were looking for opportunities to do it differently. The second theme, strategic priorities. In all cases, they emphasized the system quality. They engaged in substantive problem solving, willingness to experiment, willingness to innovate, willingness to take on challenges, perhaps make mistakes, but learn from those mistakes and move on. And so this next list are all issues that in all of these districts were done jointly. Joint development of curriculum, joint development of teacher evaluation, joint development of peer assistance and review, joint development of mentoring programs, professional development, K-12 articulation within subjects, cross-disciplinary integration, particularly at the middle school level, across subjects, new schedule, new forms of teacher orientation, coaching systems, teaching academies, textbook selection, developing shared instructional practice, developing consulting teacher networks, planning for new technology. These are the kinds of things that in all of these districts, union and management work together with a focus on student performance, database decision-making, and alignment of goals. The third element that was common to all of these collaborative partnerships was this infrastructure, that these districts all talk about a culture of collaboration, a culture of inclusion. In visiting these districts, we kept hearing, this is just the way things are done here. We share these decisions. We don't go off on our own. We do this together. They shared governance. The idea of management is not a class of employee, but it's an activity that everybody has to engage in. These collaborative structures existed not only at the district level, but at the school level, with joint building teams, school improvement committees, leadership teams, grade level and department teams, site-based decision-making teams, joint learning opportunities. Academics talk about human capital, it's what you know, and social capital are your relationships at work. And so the district that you're about to hear from, ABC Unified, we counted 400 people who have gone from California to the East Coast, Harvard, now here to Rutgers, to New York, to the Center for School Improvement, to AFT's Union Leadership Institute and Quest conferences. 400 joint teams travel across the country to learn about school improvement, solving problems, collaboration. And so they get information, but they get it together, and they develop strong relationships. That's a huge investment in this day and age, and they continue to do this. And a dense internal organizing by the union who takes on the responsibility for quality.
So we are located, sometimes when we say we're from ABC Unified School District, people think, is that XYZ district, the term that you use on the form when you have to fill out what is your district, and people don't realize that we are actually a district that was formed almost 50 years ago. ABC actually stood for 3 smaller districts, Artesia, Bloomfield, and Carmenita School District, unified in 1965, and a very clever community member. So let's take the first letter of each of those 3 smaller school districts and make it ABC. We're located in the southeast corner of Los Angeles County in California. And so just to kind of give you some background about what our district looks like, because I know that we don't mirror your districts possibly, but this is who we are. As I mentioned, we're in Los Angeles County, so we're very diverse, but we also serve a multitude of cities. And our largest city that we serve is Cerritos, but we also serve the cities of Artesia, Hawaiian Gardens, Lakewood, Long Beach, La Palma, Cypress, Norwalk, and we also serve about 11% of our students are from out of the district as well. As I mentioned, we're a very diverse district. 40% of our students are from Asian Pacific Islander background, 42% are Hispanic Latinos, and we have about 8% who are white, Caucasian, 10% are African Americans, and so we have a very rich, diverse community. Our students that we serve, we have about 21,000 TK. I'm sure some of you may have heard transitional kindergarten is now very much a part of California. TK through 12th grade students in our district. We have 30 schools, 19 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, 5 high schools, a very robust adult school with almost 14,000 additional adult learners. We also have 10 preschools. So that comprises ABC Unified School District. 51%, I know that Saul has used 46% a lot, but our district, over the years, our students are more eligible for free reduced lunch. And so 51% of our students are low-income students. 20% are English learners with about 37 different languages that are part of our school district. We have 16 magnet schools, schools that have specialized thematic themes in the schools to attract students as well as to keep students in our schools. Our dropout rate is 3.5%, and our teacher, or our total number of ABC employees that include both certificated and classified, are about over 2,800. So why collaborate?
So why collaborate? I'm just really quickly going to say, if you're launching new reforms, it helps for collaboration. It saves you money, capacity building. You have only a finite amount of energy in your organizations. So this is a way to put that into a positive way. And I want you to kind of think of labor management as kind of like let's say, if you're putting out a software product, you want to put out a software product that has no bugs, right? So what you do is software companies get a lot of input along the way so that when they release something, they don't have to have a patch and another patch and another patch and do all kinds of customer assistance along the way. You want a product to go out there that a lot of those questions are answered beforehand. You fix those bugs, and that's kind of the framework for what labor management collaboration is. Looking back.
So what are the labor management beliefs and structures that currently are in place that helps to facilitate these district-wide initiatives? That would include the implementation of the Common Core. I know you can't see this, and I never like to put things up that you can't see, but this is an important document to us in ABC. This was a charter agreement that was developed that our Board of Education took action on. It's our charter agreement in regards to the relationship of our labor management partnership. Randy Weingard, President of AFT, was present at our board meeting to have us to sign off on the document that says this is an expectation that we have as we continue to move forward in looking at how we are going to be working together. So that document is one of the structures that we had to build into place, saying this comes all the way from the top, as Saul said, from the Board of Education and our school district, signed off also by the executive board members for ABCFT. So here are the guiding principles that was on that charter agreement that you couldn't read, so this is spelled out. And each of these principles were developed in joint consultation between the superintendent and the president of ABCFT way back in 1999. And so we have carried this forward since then. And these are what guides us in our own daily work, that all students can succeed and we won't accept any excuse that prevents them from happening in ABC. We'll work together to promote student success. That's number one.
So we all need to support everything that's made available for the student to succeed. That means funding, what kind of trainings do you need? That includes, you have classified unions. Everybody has to be included in this process, so that they're aware that Common Core is coming. Everybody in the district, every staff member is aware that Common Core is happening. There's changes in the way we're going to do testing. Any kind of rollout that you're doing, we make sure that every individual knows about it.
I'm going to move quickly through a couple of closing pieces around this particular case, because part of the research we've been doing is gathering data, student performance data, so we can answer the question that somebody in this room must have, which is, this sounds great, but does it make a difference for kids? And so that's what I just want to address in the next few minutes. So the data here you already have. There's 30 schools in this district, 900 educators. At the time we were looking at this, it was 46% unreduced or free lunch. That's now moved up, as Mary said, above 50. We used the California API Index from 2011 and 2012, which, as Ray and Mary explained, are standardized tests in math, English, social studies, and science. They also include graduation and dropout rates. Then the district also did their PAL survey, which is a climate survey. And we have that data, and then we did what's called social network analysis, where we asked every educator in a survey that we put up on a website, who do you talk to in your school on a regular basis? And we listed a roster for every educator of everybody else in their school, and they would indicate, I talk to this person, I don't talk to that person. We asked how frequently. We asked what subject. In particular, after doing some interviews there, we asked about discussions around student performance data, around mentoring, around sharing instructional practice, or around curriculum or articulation. Those were the four key issues that we were really interested in. Was it formal, was it informal? And so we were really looking at what are the networks, communication networks within schools and across schools. And so this is a regression plot that looks at partnership quality, and that was based on that PAL survey, and it asked teachers about the collaboration that took place in their school, about the positive communications, and about whether there was support for the partnership. So these were a variety of different variables. They all loaded together, so we put them in as one variable. And so you see on the left side, low partnership schools. So these are the 30 schools in the district, each of those dots. And on the left side are schools that were assessed by the staff in that school as to be a low partnership school. And on the right, these are high partnership schools. And on the y-index is the improvement on API from 2011 to 2012. The reason that the scale isn't up there is Drew still in the room?
Nope.
Because we had, in order to control for poverty here, we had to regress the residuals. You can ask him what that means. But Reggie, the line, that's the right slope. But in order to control for poverty, which is a critical factor here, we just wanted to isolate the impact of the partnership in each school on the performance in each school by the students on the standardized test. So you can see here a strong positive correlation. This is a 4-point scale. And so each movement from a 1 to a 2 on partnership to a 2 and a 3 on partnership, from a 3 to a 4 on partnership, increased API scores for each school on average of 15. So if you were at the lowest level and moved to the highest level, you would have gained 45 points in API from 2011 to 2012. It's statistically significant at a very high level. It controls for poverty or the percentage of students on reduced and free lunch, and it explains 54% of the variation in that kind of achievement. So this is the statistical proof that the partnership has an impact on student performance. So from a preliminary conclusion, the partnership, that was for improvement from 11 to 12. We also did the analysis just looking at how the schools arranged themselves in 2012 on API scores. And here, moving from a low to a high gave a school 76 points in 2012. It would have been 45 points just measuring the improvement from high to low is 76 points in 2012. Moving from the lowest to the highest from 11 to 12 would have given them 45 points. In both cases, whether you're looking at the absolute level of performance in 2012 or the improvement from 2011 to 2012, you get significant improvement on API. How significant? How do you even judge what numbers like 76 or 45 mean? We also looked at poverty. And poverty in this district means that if you were to decrease poverty, if you could decrease the percentage of students on reduced or free lunch by 1%, a school would go up in API scores by 2.23 points. That's the impact of poverty on student performance in this district. Now, since the district had 100% poverty and eliminated poverty, on average schools would gain 223 points. But you don't have 100% poverty here, you have about 50% poverty. So if you eliminated poverty at ABC, schools would get about 101 points in gain just by eliminating poverty. That's huge, that's significant, and everything ought to be done to do that. But it's a tough problem. If you were to move every school from the lowest level of partnership to the highest level of partnership, you gain 76 points. It's not as much as poverty, but it's significant. And it's easier to do than eradicating poverty. We ought to be doing both. Here's the difference between the highest and the lowest performing schools in this district. The lowest schools, the bottom third on the way the faculty feel the partnership is working in their schools, roughly 16% of the teachers in that school have regular weekly communications with each other. The top third have twice that amount. 30% of the faculty are talking to each other on a regular basis. Again, this finding is statistically significant. So it works this way. The partnership creates a climate in the school that fosters collaboration. If you moved a school from a communication density of 16%, density is simply of all the teachers who are talking to each other, what percentage are, what fraction is, right? So if you moved them from the lowest third to the highest third on average, you'd get 10 API points. But there are schools that have densities up in the 50s and 60s, the highest performing. And if you moved them to there, you gain another 31 points. So in other words, what we're seeing here is that the partnership creates greater collaboration. When you have a strong partnership, you have more collaboration among the teachers. And when you have more collaboration among the teachers, you have an impact on performance. Going to be, what's the relevance to all of your organizations from what we heard this morning? We're going to ask yourselves, what did I hear that makes a difference for us? I mean, what the other cases, and specifically, and especially what ABC showed, is that it's the identification of common interests, it's the identification of a strategic set of priorities around teaching and learning, and it's about structures that institutionalize it. So starting that conversation, I think what we would like to do, whether you're at the state level or you're at the district level, is to reflect within your organizations on a couple of questions, and you've got them on the agenda. What's the relevance of what you heard to your organization? What can you work on together? And what kinds of resources do you need and support? So when we come back, less talking at you and more you yourselves addressing your own needs. And then we'll finish up the day with what's the plan going forward for New Jersey at the state level and at the district level.